Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance, and this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from Anonymous. And here's her story. How's it going, Ollie? I've been watching your videos for a few weeks and would like to shoot you an email about the things I've been going through. First off, I've been married twice, both to narcissists. The first one I met and got with when I was 21 and spent 17 years with. In my defense, I did not know what a narcissist was, and I honestly didn't start out. It honestly didn't start out that way. I can actually pinpoint the first day that the abuse started. He was also a cocaine user. He always knew how long it took me to get home from work and would time me. Almost every day he would call and say, "Where the fuck are you? What is taking so long?" Over the years, it got worse. There was a time when I owned my business and I would work 13 hours a day. Then I would come home and have to cook and clean, help the kids with homework, take care of the dogs and cats while he didn't work. He would just lay around and basically watch TV all day or nap. And after I would do all the dishes and everything, I would just want to lay down on the couch and chill. But that was impossible. If I dozed off, he would wake me, and I was not allowed to go to bed early. I couldn't go to bed without him, so I would stay up late with him, and then finally would get to go to bed, and I'd have to get up early and get ready for work and take the kids to school, and he would stay in bed. Why would you allow this? Why would you just, what is his excuse for just laying about for no reason while you're still doing everything? Why would you have put up with that in the first place? What in your past led you to put up with that sort of abuse? I would get maybe 4 hours of sleep a night. Finally, one day, I just got so sick of it all and went and stayed at my mom's. He insisted that he took me to my mom's, so at 3 a.m., he took me and our son. When we got there, he threw all our stuff in the middle of the road. My son and I had done this a couple times, and he would always swear that it was going to be better if I came home. Then he would stop doing cocaine, but it never changed. So basically, you were funding his coke habit, and he just wanted you home, probably for paranoia, money. Paranoia and money. I guarantee you, if you just would have given him money, he'd have given a shit about you or the kids. What's his motivation to get you to come home? It ain't love. It's to feed that cocaine habit. I'm a hairdresser, so I'm sure you have access to drugs and always have cash on you, which is another, because hairdressers get work mostly in tips, right? The only reason why he's calling you, not because he just wanted the money for coke. I'm a hairdresser and keep my tips in the pocket of my apron usually. And he would just walk into my salon and be rude to all my clients. Then he would come over to me, stick his hand in my pocket, and take all my money, then take off. Gee, I wonder what he was going to buy. He was a hoarder. He loved going to yard sales, so that's what the majority of my money went to. That and cocaine. What do you think coke money comes? Coke's expensive. I've never done it in my life. I've never bought, but I know it blows through money. I've seen it wreck people. It wrecked my best friend. We had a 4-bedroom house. His 3 kids are all grown and moved out. And our one son that we had together was still little in elementary school. So we had 2 bedrooms in the house that weren't being used. And they were so packed full of stuff that you couldn't even walk in the rooms and you could barely open the door. There wasn't a space on a wall that didn't have something on it. It was like the walls were literally closing in on me the longer I was with this man. He would buy slot machines. He had a collection of surfboards, He had a carousel horse in the living room. He had a collection of statue chefs, and one was a life-size statue that used to scare the shit out of everyone, including the dogs. Then finally one day I got a plan and decided that I was going to start putting money away and start lying to him about how much I made, and slowly had enough to get an apartment. But I really had to watch how long it took me to go look. Wait, I'm sorry. But I really had to watch how long it took me to go look at the apartment or go sign papers because he had me timed. He didn't want to lose his income. And finally my son says, "When are we leaving, Mom?" And he was like 11. And I said, "The next time your dad gets high, we're out of here. Why even wait? Why even wait?" See, and there's another mistake. We always are looking for some incident to go no contact. And you don't need an incident. Once you know the decision needs to be made, you need to just fucking go. Okay? As if the phone calls, the taking of money, the hoarding, the garage sailing, all of it wasn't enough. You're waiting for him to get high again. You already have enough reason to go no contact. So after I got in the apartment, it was about 5 days later that he got high and we left. It was just my son and myself. I took the 2 dogs and we left with some towels, some bedding, and my son's TV and Xbox. And we left. We had nothing. I had a lamp and 2 chairs and 2 blow-up mattresses for a couple weeks until I had enough money to start getting some used furniture together. So my husband decided to go to my best friend's house and he slashed 3 of her tires. That's rational. My other friend, he broke 2 windows out of her house, and he ended up finding out where I was, and I went through a total of 6 tires, 3 windshields, 1 back window of my car, and the hood of my car. Why did you wait for him to get high again? Again. The cops did nothing. How could they do nothing? Well, you got slashed tires and broken glass, and they're doing nothing? I ended up having 29 police reports against this man, and they did nothing because nobody saw him do it. Well, that's why after the first time, you should have figured out how to put your car under a camera. They're not going to stop. When we finally started going through our divorce, he subpoenaed the whole salon that I worked at the time, 2 of my son's teachers, and the principal of his school to air out our dirty laundry. Our divorce was $8,000 on my end, and neither of us had a goddamn thing. I ended up having to waive child support for him to finally sign the papers. I had never been arrested my entire life, and this man had me arrested twice during our divorce. So I did learn a valuable lesson. Always follow a court order. My ex-husband was supposed to pick up my son after school on Thursdays at 9 p.m. when I got off work, and pick him up again on Friday when he got done with practice, and keep him overnight until Saturday at 4 when I got off work. So he didn't bother picking him up one week on a Thursday or Friday. So the next week comes along and he doesn't pick him up on Thursday. So I went ahead and made arrangements for my aunt to pick him up on Friday because I didn't want him standing out there at school with nobody to pick him up. So my aunt picks him up. Well, that day, my ex decides he wants to be a dad and goes to pick up my son. My son wasn't there, so we called the sheriff, and the sheriff drove out to my aunt's house, picked up my son and delivered him back to his dad, and then called me at work and told me I was in violation of a court order that I would be hearing from a detective. So the next morning, I got a phone call from a detective, and he tells me that I have to turn myself into jail because I didn't follow a court order. So I did. I spent 13 hours in jail for having arrangements made for my son to be picked up instead of standing at the school where everybody's gone home. The next time he had me arrested, my son was going on a trip with the school, and they were going to be gone from Tuesday to Saturday. So I had originally gotten his permission because the Friday and Saturday was his parenting time and I needed his permission. Then he decided when I got closer to the trip that he wasn't going to let him go. So I ended up calling my attorney and we had an emergency hearing in front of a judge in order for a 7th grader to go on a science trip. The judge ruled in my favor and let my son go on the trip. So the night that he was supposed to be getting home was Saturday at 2:30 in the morning, and I had text messaged his dad and said, "Are you going to be able to pick him up?" He doesn't text me back because then I would have had proof of it. But he called and said, "No, I can't pick him up. I'm out of town. You're going to have to do it." So I get up and go to the school at 2:30 in the morning and pick up my son and see my ex-husband standing near the bus. I go and park my car and he comes over to the car and doesn't say anything. I get out of the car and tell him, "I thought you weren't coming to pick up our son." He says nothing. You know, after the first time he had you arrested, like you keep fucking with this hot stove? Like, why aren't you recording everything at this point? Secondly, you might not have had what he said, but you had proof of the phone call you made. Then I notice he has a scratch on his face, and I say, "What the hell happened to your face?" He says nothing. So I go around him, and I'm like, "You know what? I don't have time for this crap." So I go over where all the other parents are standing waiting for the kids to get off the bus. Now, mind you, it's 2:30 in the morning and all parents are in their pajamas. It's very quiet and the kids are getting off the bus. My ex comes over to me and says really loud, "What the hell are you doing here? This is my parenting day." I was so embarrassed that I literally just walked away and went and sat in my car. So then he comes over to my side of the car and he's on the phone with the sheriff and he's like, "You better not leave because the sheriff's going to be here right now." So I'm like, "Okay, cool, here we go." So the sheriff shows up and they start talking to me. Start talking to him pretty soon. The sheriff that was talking to him comes over to me and says, "Why did you put your hands on your husband?" And I said, "I didn't. I never even touched him." And he's like, "How did he get that scratch on my face?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, are you kidding me?" So I ended up getting arrested for the second time. This time it's domestic violence assault, and I go to jail and I'm there for 11 hours before I'm released. They ended up dropping the first charge of me not following the court order, which I was actually guilty of, and ended up prosecuting me on the domestic violence assault. I had to hire a defense attorney and ended up spending $2,000 on that case, and it took a total of 10 months before I was finally found not guilty. Well, then you should have turned around and sued your ex-husband if you were found not guilty. You absolutely should turn around and sue him. After the first time he had your arrest, like, why would you do anything? Why would you go anywhere near this guy? If, like, once you saw him at the school, at the bus stop, you should have just left. These people are sick and do whatever they can to get to you. So finally I get over dealing with this man, and pretty soon he loses interest in our son and doesn't have anything to do with him anymore, and our lives are pretty normal for a while. Then one day I end up hooking up with a guy that I knew from when I was a kid and seemed to be perfect at first. But turned out to be an alcoholic and physical abuser. Would constantly accuse me of sleeping around or looking at someone or talking to somebody behind his back. I've never had a lock on my phone. I've always felt like I never had anything to hide and didn't need to. But this guy would go through my phone while I was in the shower and turn a text message that I had with a client into, "Oh, you want him, you're fucking him." And I would be like, "What are you talking about?" Where we're talking about a haircut appointment. See, you know what the problem here is, Anonymous? You're attracted to these guys who are who show their jealousy. Okay, and my fear is that somehow you're kind of attracted to that jealous But the jealous narcissist is dangerous because they're usually addicted to something. They don't have capacity of their own thoughts. They're vindictive, and they're a lot like women. I was accused of sleeping with all the guys that were in other businesses around the salon I worked at. And let's not forget the guy at the grocery store, the guy at the gas station. He thought I was really busy screwing everybody. He worked the graveyard shift and would get home at 5:30 in the morning and I would still be asleep. And I would be woken up every morning and yelled at for something new. One night he was super drunk and decided to put his hands on me and start yelling at me, and I honestly don't even remember what he was so mad about. But he decided to start talking shit about my son and harassing us both, so I locked us in my son's room. And then he decided that he was going to unscrew the doorknob, and I told him, if you unscrew that doorknob, I'm calling the cops. So the cops were called and he was arrested. One night he was at work, and I have never gone through anybody's phone or computer or anything. That's just not me. But one night I got this overwhelming feeling that I needed to see what he had been doing on my laptop that he used for Facebook. So I turn it on and it goes right to his Facebook. He left it open. I was shocked. So I start looking through his messages, and he's been talking to his ex-girlfriend. When all of a sudden he comes home when he's not supposed to be home. Yet he's supposed to be working. But he realizes that he left his Facebook open and came all the way back home to turn it off. Then there was another time that he had gone to work, and this was maybe a couple months later. And again, I got an overwhelming feeling to go through the computer. So I did. This time he didn't leave his Facebook open and I couldn't get into it. So I checked his emails and didn't see anything there either. Then I decided to check the history on the computer, and he had cleared it. So, of course, I was like, why would someone clear the search history unless they're hiding something? I know there is another way to look at what the history is on the computer, and I'm not savvy with all the computer, but I started trying to figure it out, and it took me a while, but I figured it out. I was absolutely horrified at what I had seen. When I first started looking through it, I would just see regular porn stuff. It didn't look like anything crazy. Then I started seeing stuff that said twink, and I had an idea what that meant. Then I told you they act like women because, and here's the reveal again. And then I would see stuff like donkey sex and horse sex. I kept seeing the twink stuff again, and I clicked on one of the links to see what it was because I had never heard that terminology before, and it was young boys. I have a teenage boy at home, my son, so I was freaking out and thinking that he was checking out my kids, so utterly disgusted by this asshole. Yeah, like a twink isn't necessarily an underage kid. It's usually a skinny, like wafy type of guy is a twink. It's not necessarily an underage kid. But I kept looking, and then I see gay porn sites he was looking at, so I filed for divorce. I had him served at work. The last time I saw him was when I woke him up. The last time I saw him was when I woke up to him trying to tie me to the bed, and he punched me in the stomach. I gave him an ultimatum at that point and told him, look, I can either call the police and you'll go to prison for 6 months because you have a prior charge, or you can get a fucking plane ticket and get the fuck out of my life. He decided to leave and get a plane ticket and go back to where he was from. I finished up the divorce, filed default, and that was that. That relationship lasted 2 years. And you didn't know he was violent and an alcoholic before you married him? Look, I gotta call you out here. You are going towards these drama queen guys, okay, these jealous types, and I think it's to feed your own insecurities, to have these jealous type crazy men who end up turning out to be violent. Again, like I said to you in the beginning, it isn't about these guys. The problems in your past. Why you have such low self-esteem to begin with, to put up with this. To put all your value in a man and a man's jealousy of you. Meanwhile, he was stalking me on Facebook, creating multiple accounts to try to message me. I ended up deleting all my social media. So after all that, I took some time out for myself to try to regroup. And after a while, I got into a dating website where I met the current narc I'm trying to get rid of. This guy was so amazing when I first met him. Again, all your problems are men related. Because again, you are attaching your happiness and all your self-esteem to your vagina. I keep getting these. You know, when I get one, you know, the themes usually stay the same, I guess, because people get triggered here. I was about 2 weeks away from moving when I met him and ended up helping us move, and he helped clean my old place. He did the yard work. He shampooed the carpet. He was just amazing. I ended up getting my whole deposit back from that house. And then when I moved into the new place, he hung all my pictures. I had some furniture that had gotten broken in the move. He fixed all my furniture and made me new furniture. It was absolutely amazing. And I used to think to myself, like, where has this man been my whole life, and how come no one has snatched him up yet? After a while, I started noticing some red flags, and I would bring certain things to his attention. But he would just explain them away, and he was very good at that. Well, at one point, we had been dating for almost a year, and it came to a point where he needed a place to stay. His sister, who had lived with us, was selling her house, so I decided he could move in with us. Wait a minute. So I decided she could move in with us. Big mistake, big mistake, because we had never lived together. He could move in. I didn't realize he had a cocaine problem. Come on, man. Come on. You don't see this? You're the problem here. How do these guys hiding cocaine problems and alcohol problems until it's too late? Look, I understand you're a hairdresser, and that's a chaotic type of business where you deal with a lot of lunacy. A lot of lunacy. Okay, and the problem, and a lot of it is wrapped up in vanity and looks and that whole thing. So I can understand how you got caught up in this. Okay, you are putting your value once again on what men will do for you, and how jealous they get over you. You're going to keep repeating this pattern until you get to whoever broke you. And I'm going to put the guess again on another mother who destroyed her daughter and made her put all her self-esteem in her vagina. You're a hairdresser. There's coke, there's drugs, and all these. Like, you're not gonna get that one by me that you didn't know, or you just willfully, no way. Every day he would be out in my garage doing coke and smoking cigarettes. And then it got to the point where he was trying to control me. It started out with, I don't like that body spray you're wearing. And I would say, what's wrong with it? And he would say, well, it's sparkly and you look like a stripper. And I was like, I'm fat. There's no part of me that looks like a stripper, even on a good day. Then it would be, I don't like the shirt you're wearing. Well, what's wrong with this shirt? You're showing too much cleavage. See, all of this everything you're telling me is based on your looks. Okay, and whether you're telling me you're fat or not, Okay? These are all like kind of veiled, put me out there, throw out compliments. This is all you want everybody to know. They're jealous of you. Even though you're this is your problem. All your value is based on your pussy. Why? Why? Who did this to you? Wasn't these dudes. You were like this before any of these three found you. Why? Who did this to you? I mean, it's sad. This is sad. Okay, so I stopped wearing shirts that were a little lower. Then he would complain you're showing too much skin because maybe they had the shoulder cut out or something. Mind you, all these shirts that I've worn around him for a year, and he's never said anything about them until he moved in. Then he was like, I don't like your cat being on the bed, or I don't like your dog being in the house. Now let me say this. He never paid a fucking dime of rent the whole 6 months he lived with me. So my son, who is now 16, and this guy I was dating, you need to put your son, who's 17, ahead of these fucking cokeheads and alcoholics. What was the point of getting away from the first cokehead to only run to two more? You left the first one when he was 11. You were dealing with him for another couple years. Okay, and now you're up to two more and your son's only 17? You're the problem. Stop thinking with your pussy. Grow up. And I know that might be harsh. Okay? Pull your head out of the salon life, okay? I know what goes on in those salons. You're his mother. You think, what 17-year-old wants to see their fucking mother dating cokehead after cokehead? So my son now is 17, and this guy I was dating says, I don't like when your son's friends spend the night. And of course, I'm like, what are you talking about? I have known these boys since they were in kindergarten. And he would basically tell me, well, I used to be a teenage boy, and I know that they're checking you out. So here we go again with that crap. He basically moved my cat out into the garage, and my dog was outside all day, who was an inside dog. My wardrobe is very small at this point. Oh, and then he told me he didn't want me cutting men's hair anymore either. See, I think you eating this up. I think there's a part of you deep down that eats up this jealousy. You eating it up. I'm calling you out. For your own good. For your son's good. Stop putting all your value in your pussy. Who are you? Who did this to you? It wasn't these three dudes. Oh, and of course, don't let me forget that he owes me a lot of money. Well, he finally got another job on the other side of town and ended up moving out to live with his kid's ex-wife. Turns out that was the best decision I think he's ever made. I've been trying to go no contact with this one, but he keeps threatening to do things like break windows out of cars or smear campaigns. These are grown-ass men, and you got to be in your 30s or 40s at this point. I mean, this is high school shit because, look, honestly, you're working a high school type job, a high school mentality type job. And when you stay in a high school mentality type job, and I'm not saying give up being a hairdresser, because it's an honest living, but you got to be able to leave the hairdresser lifestyle in the fucking salon. This is some high school bullshit, and your son's the one in high school. Meanwhile, his mother's running around with every fucking cokehead she can find. Typical narcissistic stuff that seems to be all in their DNA. It let me finally see this cycle I'm going through, and your videos have helped. Now I didn't really know about the golden child and the scapegoat child, but now that I do, I see that my first ex-husband and his three, I see that with my first ex-husband and his 3 kids. And also I see that pattern in the boyfriend that I am currently trying to get rid of. It's crazy to me that these 3 men that I've been with in the last 20 years, but it's all been the exact same man, just different package basically. And why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? Because of what you haven't talked about, your actual problems in your past. You've talked about 3 men who are just nothing but jealous of you and go crazy when you leave them. Yet you're writing to me. Why? Because I think you wanted me to call you out. You're not the only one. A lot of them do it. A lot of people do it. But while I'm watching your videos, you're always saying there's a reason why you're picking these type of people. It's because you're familiar with the abuse and you need to look at a family member of how things were growing up. So I've started thinking about this, and I've had the hugest epiphany of my life and just realized that my mother is the grand narcissist cunt of them all. Well, thank God. Thank God. Not to mention my aunt is also one, and so is my grandmother. I come from a long line of narcissistic bitches. Thank God. Oh, hold on, I'm fighting off a sneeze. This is what I'm trying to tell you. I'm not yelling at you to pick on you. I'm yelling at you to come to this real, because I know this is why you're acting like this. You're putting your son in danger because of your fucking mother. Because your mother, your grandmother, your aunts, they valued you so much and told you your only value is through your fucking pussy. It's through the attention of men, is to have men want you and fight over you and kill for you. How many times you heard it on oh, he must really care for you if he gets that violent. It's sad, but this is how a lot of women think. And the reason they think that way is because they've been so devalued by their mother. I come from a long line of narcissistic bitches, and now I'm struggling with the fact that how I am the only one that's different. Why is it that I'm the only one that can see that, and that's not how you're supposed to act? I wonder what would have happened if you had a daughter and not a son. You're realizing there's something wrong here. I wonder what would have happened if you had a daughter and not a son. It's a good chance to... Because if it got this bad with you for this long, maybe the only thing that saved you was having a son that you didn't have to fucking compete against. My concern is that you turned your son into a mama's boy or a son husband. That I hope you didn't do. Because the craziness of a 17-year-old boy growing up around a salon life with 2 cokeheads and an alcoholic, he needs some positive male influence in his life. And right now, you aren't the one to provide it. You don't even know who the hell you are. Because you hate yourself deep down, because your mother has crushed everything about you. That's not how you're supposed to raise children. Why is it that I'm different when I've been raised by these women who, by the way, hate to see me succeed or that my son is a good kid? Because you had a son. You know what Virginia's biggest jealousy over my mother was? Me. You know why? Because my mother did on the first shot what my grandmother couldn't do on 3. Produce a son. And believe me, producing sons is important to narcissistic women. Because they can make them into a son husband. Mommy this, mommy that. Women, daughters, mothers destroying daughters. That's why. That might be hard to deal with. That might be a hard reality you might have to face. Like if my son was a daughter, I'd have done the same thing. He's not a troublemaker or anything. It's like they would rather him be a druggie, punk, tagging, or fighting or something like that. But it's not. But he's not. And they have no way to pick him apart. They have no way to pick me apart. And they don't like the fact that I'm not like them. And they know that I'm not like them. The things that I went through with my mom, my aunt, my grandma will be email number 2. Thank you, Ollie, for all that you do. If it weren't for people like you and some of the other videos I watch, I would have no idea what I'm dealing with and would have no idea what I've been through. So I appreciate you. Anonymous. Well, thank you, Anonymous. Look. I'm glad by the end of this we got to the real problem here. Which is your mother, your family, that cycle of narcissistic women abusing their daughters, crushing their femininity, taking away any self-confidence and assigning any type of self-confidence to their vaginas. This is how you've been living your life. You were lucky enough to have a son and only a son. Otherwise, who knows what could have happened. Right now, he's 17. And you have to realize you are in no position to be bringing anybody, any man, into any situation right now. Until you learn how to find value in yourself outside of your looks and some man's jealousy of you. That's not going to happen. You're going to keep bringing in the same type of drug-addicted, abusive, jealousy type loser. And it's because of your mother. And it's because of your upbringing. So, I hope that helps. So thank you so much for your contribution and your story. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comments section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, or a Facebook live chat, or you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it successful, growing, and surviving, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from you guys. Without you guys, all of this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been The Narcissistic Resistance.